Thanks for checking in to the State of Basketball podcast, episode 27. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaren Will each and every week, and we're going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball.
Cut that number in half, you round down to 5. That's what we did last week. Now we got 6 left, so not going to provide you the news and notes on all 11. So right off the bat, I am a liar. So you're off scot-free this week, Jaren. I will take the liar card this time because
Nice.
we split our season recaps here in half. So just trying to, talk a little bit more about each team and go a little bit more in depth than we could if we were doing all 11 in one. But if you were here last week, we talked about Butler, Ball State, Evansville, IU, and Indiana State. So we talked about those 5, and this week we're going to talk about the other 6. And we're not going to go into a whole lot of things. I know probably a lot of you listening are wondering what's going on with the transfer portal. I've seen a lot of people come back. I've seen a lot of people leave. We've gotten some new people. We're not going to really go into the transfer portal. We're just kind of focused on like what our expectations were before the season, what kind of happened in the season. Do they meet expectations? Do they not meet expectations? And, just seeing kind of how the team stacked up to what we thought they were going to do. Were we right? Were we wrong? We'll go into transfers at a later date. That'll be in 2 weeks. Might be 1 episode, might be 2. I mean, we kind of just wanted to wait for the window to come to a close because people can still enter the portal. I don't remember what date they have
May
to enter
1st.
by. Okay.
May 1st. So
when we do our show on the transfer portal, everyone will have to be in unless they're a grad transfer. But people can, people have until, I don't know, the first day of the season or something to decide where they're going to go. So we'll kind of talk about that in 2 weeks. But let's you just want to get into it. You want to recap our rankings, where we started with our rankings at the beginning of the season, and then where we ended up with our 11 teams rankings.
Yeah, I'll run through that real quick. I wanted to, just because, since we didn't talk about all 11 schools last week, if there's anyone watching this episode wanting to hear about a school that they might follow, I just want to just go through these again, just so that, we cover our bases, right? Everyone, we go through it for anyone who might be listening. So starting the season, we did it at the end of week 1 last year. We did not do it prior to the season. That's on us.
Oversight.
We owned up to that. We didn't think about it. It was an enhancement we made. You're welcome. But after week 1 of the season, we had Purdue at 1, Purdue Fort Wayne at 2, Indiana State at 3, Indiana at 4, Ball State at 5, Butler at 6, Evansville at 7, Notre Dame at 8, IUPUI at 9, Valpo at 10, and then Southern Indiana at 11. Now, each week, we shuffle these around based on how the teams in the season were unfolding. Where we ended, our final at the end of the season rankings were Purdue at 1, no surprise there, Indiana State at 2, Butler at 3, Indiana at 4, Notre Dame at 5, Evansville at 6, Purdue Fort Wayne at 7, Ball State at 8, Valpo at 9, Southern Indiana at 10, IUPUI at 11. And like I said, I know I kind of flew through that pretty quickly. We talked about it a lot more in depth on our last episode. So if you do want to hear kind of, some more insight there, go check that episode out. And, it'll be at the beginning of the episode after we rambled for a few minutes about our journey as a show. But it'll be there with a more kind of in-depth talk through on how those things really kind of unfolded throughout the season.
Yeah, kind of a one thing that, I'm just thinking of is like just following all 11 teams this year was awesome. And we had 3 teams in the state who were runners up in a postseason tournament. We had Purdue was runners up in the national championship game in the NCAA tournament. Indiana State was runner up in the NIT, and Purdue Fort Wayne was runner up in the CIT. So, I mean, that's a great spot to be in. There's only, I guess, the CBI. Evansville was in the CBI. They didn't make it to the final. But I mean, great representation across all tournaments. Ideally, we'd want to have more Indiana teams in the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
Butler made the NIT. But I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Purdue, Indiana State, Butler, Purdue Fort Wayne, and Evansville were
Indiana
the only
got
ones.
invited to the NIT. They declined it though.
Right.
So little honorable mention there, I guess. Selfishly, I mean, I'm also wearing an IU shirt, so wanted to just throw that out there. That we would have had one more team playing in a postseason.
Yeah. Feels weird because we're going to jump into the teams, and I'm so like used to jumping into Ball State because they're alphabetically first. That's just the way we've done it. But we're going to jump into IUPUI, and this will be the last. I mean, this is the last IUPUI season that we're going to be talking about. Next season, I don't know when we'll make the switch. Probably after the academic year when they make the official switch. We will refer to them as IU Indy or IUI, whatever they prefer. But we will call them IUPUI. It's going to happen. But This is the last IUPUI season. And how did it go? Well, they started at 320th in KenPom to start the season, and they ended the season at 360th. So there were 362 teams in the country, and they were 360th. I mean, not the direction you want to go, but they're kind of the beginning of the season. Their projected record was 13-18, which was going to be a vast improvement of the year before, because the year before, they won five games. So you're winning, projected to win 8 more games. That's a great spot to start the season. And we were really hopeful about kind of year 3 of the Matt Crenshaw era. We wanted to see some forward progress. They finished the 2022-2023 season at 360th in KenPom, which is the same spot they finished this season. So, we'll talk about kind of the actual results in just a second, but they're projected to finish second to last in the Horizon League. The only team that they were supposed to finish in front of was Detroit Mercy. And we kind of thought at the beginning of the season, like, okay, they're projected second to last, but 13 wins is going to put you in a great spot to finish anywhere from 6th to 10th, because the Horizon League was like pretty top heavy based on preseason projections, and then kind of a crapshoot in the middle. And we were like, okay, if they can just win, 2 more games, they could seriously finish 6th in the conference. And so that was our hope. They had 3 of their 5 starters coming back, I think. And, Jalen Counter was back. He was a second team all preseason player for the Horizon League. They had some transfers like Blocker from Buffalo and Kwanzi Samuels from George Washington. So they had some what we thought were going to be good pieces. So we were hopeful, and we were probably higher on the team than a lot of people are, because I think a lot of people have thought of IUPUI and looked at them as like the bottom of KenPom, where they have been. And, this is the team that was having open tryouts a couple of years ago. And so people just aren't able to look past that. We looked past that and we said, 13-18 sounds great. They've got good pieces coming back. They've got a great player in Counter coming back. Unfortunately, it did not exactly pan out that way. So break down what happened actually in this season, Jaren.
Yeah. So like you said, they did finish 360th out of 362. Next season, shameless plug, I guess not really a plug, but exciting news. There will be 363 teams in Division 1. I believe Maryhurst or Mercyhurst or something. I don't know. Our friend,
someone made the move.
Yep. Our friend at Bracket Busters, or not Bracket Busters, Elliot. Our friend
Elliot at Bracket Busters.
Is it Bracket Busters? Okay. For some reason, I was like, that doesn't sound right. I was thinking of Bracket Matrix. No, yep. So Elliot Crow at Bracket Busters has tweeted about it several times. There will be 363 teams in Division 1. That's not important here. They're not in Indiana. Back to our regular scheduled programming. They finished 6-26 overall. So less than, what they were projected more than what they had the year before. They did go 2-18 in the conference, so that was good. They finished second to last, just above Detroit Mercy, kind of like the preseason polls were expecting. Some notable games. One thing I want to call out is they had 6 wins, right? Well, 3 of those wins were against non-D1 opponents.
Yeah.
So that right off the bat, it's not a great sign necessarily. But I just wanted to call that out there. Are they notable positively? Probably not, but it is something that's worth calling out. In terms of in-state matchups, they went 2-2. They won against Valpo early on, 66-56. They lost to Indiana State, as just about everyone in the country did that played them. They won against Purdue Fort Wayne in a rivalry matchup on the road.
Which was 85. A shock.
Yeah, huge shock. They won 85-79 there. And then when they played Purdue Fort Wayne at home in their second game, they lost 92-65. So Purdue Fort Wayne came back with a vengeance. Important players, right? Jalen Counter, like we talked about, was the leader on that team. He 14.3 points per game. He shot 45% from the field. He averaged 3 assists and just under 4 rebounds per game. Bryce Monroe, a guy that we didn't really talk much about. He was a starter that came back, 11 points, 2.6 assists. And then Vincent Brady, the second, 9 points per game, and then 3.4 rebounds per game. And then, like we talked about, 10th out of 11 in the Horizon League. And then they lost their first round by 19 to Cleveland State of the Horizon League Championship. So which is what they call
the tournament.
It wasn't the tournament, or it wasn't the championship game. It was just first round of the Horizon League tournament. They lost to Cleveland State.
And like you talked about, Counter averaged 14.3 points. He shot 45%. We thought he was like we saw him play in person 2 years ago, and we're like, oh, like dude can ball.
Yeah.
So like we were kind of high on him, and like I know we didn't really talk about Monroe, but like he was one of the 3. Those were some of the 3 starters coming back, and we really thought like you've got a core. You're basically your leading scorers coming back. Like you should be able to build on that.
All guys that had played for Crenshaw before too.
Yeah.
So it's like they had the experience there. It just didn't work out.
The defense was just atrocious. The rebounding was terrible like all year. I mean, they were 358th in rebounding. They were dead last in effective field goal percentage defense. So if and like they were dead last in 2-point percentage on defense, and the worst 3-point shooting team in the country.
Yeah, I don't think I wrote anyone's 3-point percentages down just because they were that bad.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
It's like, I don't know. Was it a personnel issue? Was it a coaching issue? I don't know. Both probably. I just think that, it just wasn't working. And, your obviously preseason projections are what they are. You never really know how those are going to pan out. But Ken Pom, all analytic based, says like, you're bringing back these pieces. You're bringing these pieces in. You should be able to win 13 games. Well, they only won 3 games against D1 teams. And the year before, they only won 3 games against D1 teams because they played 2 non-D1 teams the year before, and they played 3 this year. So pretty much the same result. And that's why you saw Matt Crenshaw, get let go at the end of the season. There was
spoilers, bro. We're gonna talk about that next week.
Well, that's not a transfer thing. That's just
Yep.
I mean, that did happen technically in this season.
That's true.
It's we'll talk about that again. Yeah, we will talk about that next week because
in 2 weeks actually. Sorry.
Yeah, 2 weeks. That plays into the transfer portal very, very heavily. But they were very close to finishing last in the Horizon League. The only reason they didn't is because Detroit Mercy only had 1 win on the season. And Detroit Mercy also fired their coach.
Yeah.
So, it just really, really rough. It was disappointing because there's just a lot that I think needs to change throughout the years. Like there's just a lot that kind of needs to change in the program, and I don't want to harp on it too much, but disappointing for us. So I would say the season was definitely a disappointment, not a successful season. And we hope that things are going to look better in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about Notre Dame because they did not disappoint. I would say they.
I would agree, based on like projected record to actual record, it's a close argument, but like looking at the eye test, they absolutely, did a much better job here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they started the season at 165th in Ken Palm and they ended the season at 118th. So almost a 50-point jump in Ken Palm, which is really good. We're close to cracking the top 100. And they're projected to go 11-19 for the season and get 5 wins and 15 losses in the ACC, which kind of a down year in the ACC, but there's 15 teams in there, so
Yeah, 15.
part of that can be a scheduling thing. Like they had to play Virginia twice. Virginia's typically good.
Mhm.
I think they played North Carolina twice.
I think
Anyway,
so.
scheduling can be a big issue there, depending on if you go 5-15 or you go, 8-12. But kind of, we were excited, like we were fired up about this Notre Dame season because if you asked anyone like who didn't know anything, they'd be like, Notre Dame is going to be atrocious. Like they lost, what do they lose? Pretty much everyone. They had
Yeah,
3 people coming back. They had 7 newcomers, 4 freshmen, and 3 transfers. So they were losing basically everyone, all their starters, all their leading scorers, everyone was gone. And you're like, okay, what are they going to do? But then you look and it's the first year of Micah Shrewsbury. And I mean, Micah Shrewsbury is just the truth. He is an awesome X's and O guy.
he's got more
And
plays than Broadway. Like the dude
yeah,
can coach a team.
yeah, very, very, very good offensive mind for sure. Um, but we expected, I would say, nothing. Like we expected them to kind of finish 11-19, maybe 10-20, and probably not like it. Our kind of expectation was if you go above, like if you get more than 11 wins, that's successful.
Yeah,
Like that is a win because this is a complete rebuild he's doing. And so they were expected to finish dead last in the ACC. We thought if they win more than that, like that's good because Shrews is a good coach. And they picked up some really, really surprising wins, like when they trounced Virginia by 20. When they beat Georgia Tech twice this season. Like they had some really, really good wins. They uh,
yeah. I
put
mean,
up a good fight against some really good teams this year.
yeah, and I'll talk about that now. Just they beat Virginia Tech, pretty good team, right? Beat Wake Forest, pretty good team. Beat Clemson, typically a really good team. Like those are big wins for that
Yeah, Clemson,
for
a
Notre
tournament
Dame.
team.
Yeah.
Didn't they go to the Elite Eight?
E-
Maybe. Yeah, because
yeah,
Brad Brownell, yeah, he saved
yeah,
his job by going to like
yeah,
the Elite Eight, which is crazy because like there were times in this season when they looked horrible, but people that we thought would be impactful. We talked about Braden Shrewsbury a little bit. He came over, flipped his commitment when his dad got the job. He was going to go to Penn State, and then his dad got the job at Notre Dame, so he came over with his dad. No brainer. But the guy that we were really high on was Marcus Burton. He's a 5'11" point guard. He can score at all 3 levels. He was
5'11"
Indiana
on
Mr. Basketball.
paper. I think he's
Yeah,
more like 5'9".
5'11" with shoes on his tiptoes. But yeah, he played really, really well. He was ACC Freshman of the Year, right?
Yep, yep. Rookie of the year, what they call it.
Yep.
Also made ACC third team.
Which is really, really good.
Yep.
So tell us more about kind of what they actually did because we were like, get more than 11 wins, successful season. We expect nothing this year. Don't finish dead last in the ACC. That's all
Yes,
we wanted.
and they achieved both of those goals that we had for them. They had 13 wins. They went 13-20. They were 7-13 in the ACC. So 3 games shy of 500. Really good. Talk about kind of their big wins. They only lost to NC State by 2. NC State was a Final Four team. So
Yes, exactly.
that's
A crazy run to get there.
yeah, yeah.
But
But still,
still,
uh, a team that played in the Final Four, they lost by 2. So that's I think a great benchmark there. But Marcus Burton, like we said, ACC third team, ACC Rookie of the Year, averaged 17.5 points per game, 4.3 assists per game, and just under 2 steals per game. So did it on both ends of the court. Keba and Jai had 5.4 rebounds per game, led the team there in that category. He had just under 1 block per game. So again, doing it all on the defensive side. Braden Shrewsbury, 10.2 points per game. I believe he was the second leading scorer behind Marcus Burton. So 2 freshmen leading the team in scoring. Really good sign. And then Braden was also a 37% 3-point shooter on the season. So they finished.
Didn't we get some records from those 2 guys?
Yeah.
Burton had like the freshman debut record.
Yeah, the freshman debut record that he got from, forget who it was. His name's just right there.
LaFonso Ellis.
Yeah,
right?
LaFonso Ellis. Yeah, Fonz. And then he also had the single season scoring record for a freshman. For a freshman.
And then did Braden get it, or was he like one off from like the 3-pointers in a game? I don't remember if it was by a freshman or just like 3-pointers in a game for a.
I don't.
It was something like that.
He was definitely like at minimum one off. But he might have gotten it. I genuinely don't remember. But that was a game he popped for like 24 and carried their team to an overtime win. But they did finish 12th in the ACC, so not last. Like we said, there are 15 teams. The ACC tournament, they won their first round game against Georgia Tech, and then they had a second round loss to Wake Forest, who they beat previously in the season, so hoped for the same result there. But all in all, great season from the Fighting Irish, I'd say. They, with 3 guys coming back, 7 new pieces, right? New coach. Didn't know what to expect. Wouldn't have been shocked if they did worse than what they did. But
100%.
They showed that they're on the right track to being a nationally relevant team again, like they had been for quite some time.
And like there were some, like I said, there were some crazy things that happened this year. Like they lost to the Citadel by 20. And then
I thought the season was going to unravel.
Yeah, and then in the press conference, Shrews was like, basically like it starts with me, of course, but if you're not going to give your effort, like you're going to sit on the bench and you're going to write, I will help you transfer. I will help you transfer. And it's like, okay, they're either going to turn this around and play really well. They may not win games, but they're either going to play really well or they're going to fold. And they definitely responded.
Yeah, and that's what you need from a team. That's a sign of a team that's got fight, and they had fight. I mean, not only is it in their team mascot name, but they, as a team, fought through it, and all in all, had what I'd call a successful season.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do we want to go next?
Let's do Purdue Fort Wayne. Let's talk about them. They, I'll start us off there. They did, all in all, maybe didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve, but we'll put it this way: they started the season at. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is another team that was very similar to the Notre Dame situation. They weren't losing their coach, like they didn't have a new coach coming in, but they started the season at 300th. And they finished the season at 157th. And you're like, okay, like what went on there? And this team, we expected less than we expected out of Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame, it was kind of like whatever you throw out there. I don't know, show us some good stuff. But like
low ceiling.
Purdue Fort Wayne, we were like, you're losing all 5 of your scorers. You're all 5 of your top 5 like leading scorers, all 5 of your starters. They graduated 4,000 career points. And like when you hear that number, you're like, oh, like this is going to be rough. And we didn't expect it to be like terrible, but we expected like a rough season because you're a whole new starting five. You have no idea how they're going to gel. You have no idea who's going to be the guy. And all things considered, they were projected to go 13-17, which is not terrible. I mean,
No, no.
The Horizon League is, I think, a good league.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good low mid major or low major.
I mean, has
For sure.
anyone from the Horizon League like done anything notable like in the last 2 months in the NCAA tournament or anything?
I mean,
Like,
Oakland, the team that got the bid, beat Kentucky in the first round.
so you're telling me that like, the Horizon League's not scrubs. So like,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
tough
I'd
league
say
to
that.
play in. And so like we expected, they were projected to finish ninth, go 13-17 in the season. Last year when they had their 5 leading scores, they were 17-15. They had some weird struggles the year before, but like you go 17-15 and you lose 4,000 career points in your 5 starters, you expect to be below 500. Like you expect a rebuilding year. And some people were like, okay, who can probably help? Well, they had freshman Corey Hadnot coming in. They had Jalen Jackson transferring back. He was at UIC,
Yep.
correct, the year
Yep.
before. So he was playing in the Missouri Valley, right there in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah.
I'm so hyper focused on the Indiana team.
No, I think they're in the OVC.
Are they?
I think so.
They're in one of those. But anyway, so then you have like Destin Whitaker transfers in, then Maximus Nelson's there. So you're like, okay, maybe they can do something if they can click. But that's like a big ask. So we didn't know what to expect. So a win, like a successful season for us, how we framed it is like they're expected to go, where were they expected to finish? We like I don't remember where. Oh, they were projected to finish ninth in the Horizon League, but kind of the same way that. So that's one place above, or 2 places above. No, one place above IUPUI. And so we were like, okay, like you can do better than that probably. But we were like, you could win 2-3 more games, which is doable. You could be as high as fifth in the Horizon League. So we were like, get above 500 or 500, and that is like you're happy. You count that as a successful season.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess I'll talk about their season, but UIC is in the Missouri Valley.
I knew it.
Yeah, it sounded right, but at the same time, I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I saw OVC somewhere. Nope, they are in the Missouri Valley.
The second 2 words, we were right either way.
Yeah, correct. They were in the Valley Conference. But anyways, like we talked about, they finished the season out at 157 in Ken Palm. Big jump from where they were expected to start the season. They went 23-13, 11-9 in the conference, so above 500. They could have probably won 26, 27 games this year. That was absolutely realistic. They just went through a low spot like most teams do, but they blew out Oakland, who, as we talked about, beat Kentucky in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So they actually, Jack Golke, who led the team past Kentucky, had taken like 4 shots or seven or less shots from 2 all season. The other 200 some shots he had were from 3. I think 4 of those, or two or 4 of those, came against Purdue Fort Wayne. So if that tells you anything about their defense, they forced a pure 3-point shooter to have to take a tough shot, which is kind of funny. A tough shot being a 2-pointer. They beat Youngstown State, who was at the top of the conference. I think they finished second. They had an overtime win over Wright State, who I believe finished in 4th overall in the season. And then they went 2-1 in in-state games. They beat Southern Indiana by 13. They lost to IUPUI, like they talked about, and they also then won against IUPUI. So, pretty positive things there from, I guess, the matchups that they had. Guys we talk about, Jalen Jackson transferring back, made the Horizon League 3rd team.
Yeah, transferred home too.
Yeah, transferred home. He's a Fort Wayne native. He was their leading scorer at 15.7 points per game. He shot 41% from 3. Eric Mulder, hardest working man in America, led the team in rebounds.
Let it be known.
Led the team in rebounds at 7.4, and then also had 1 block per game. and even one. Rashid Bello, who, again, another transfer in.
My man got a block with his shoe. Come on, man.
Did in fact, and it forced the NCAA to make a rule change,
yeah.
or a rule clarification. But he was third team as well. He was all defensive team. He was the second leading scorer at 14.9 points per game. He had 4.2 assists, just under 2 steals per game, and he was a 35% 3-point shooter. Anthony Roberts, a returner, I believe, who did not play much or was not a starter the year before.
I think they're only graduating senior this year.
Yep, he was also their only graduating senior. He was all defensive team. He averaged 13.4 points per game and just under 6 rebounds per game. And then Corey Hadnot, who we talked about, he was all freshman team for the Horizon. So, positive signs, right? Like all of these guys, like we talked about, are coming back. They finished 7th in the Horizon League out of 11. So higher than they were projected, just about kind of in the range that we thought that they could realistically fall. They did win their first round game in the Horizon League Championship against Robert Morris, and then lost to Oakland,
who won the whole thing.
Who went on to win the whole thing and play in the NCAA tournament. Then the CIT, like we talked about, them being runners up, they won against Bowling Green in the first round. The next round they beat Tarleton State, and then they lost in the championship to Norfolk State.
And they had a rough thing because they had to go to Norfolk State, which is crap because Norfolk State basically had just 2 extra days of rest for that game, and that was unfortunate because Norfolk State played their last game at home, but and Purdue Fort Wayne was on the road for all 3 of their CIT games, which is annoying.
Yeah, so they're traveling around the country.
Yeah, I mean, we were really high on this team right from the gate because they played DePaul at DePaul and won to open the season.
Yep.
And we called that before the season happened, like before the game happened. We're like, we see it happening. We see, we can see it happening. We think it's going to happen. And it did. They just struggle in conference, really. I mean, there were, young team relatively, just kind of having trouble closing games was kind of the issue for this team. And I think, they're going to not have that issue next year. I mean, they had a 5-game skid to start the year. So they lost 5 games straight, and one of them was at home to IUPUI. So you can see how their confidence was probably rattled. They got things going back on track a little bit to end the season, but very, very successful season. I mean, John Kaufman is an incredible coach.
Yeah.
And, you can
Great
tell
guy,
why he's been there for so long. Yeah.
Great guy. We've had the chance we've met him. We've sat down with him, talked one-on-one. He's a fan of the show, fan of what we do, which, makes me like him even more.
Yeah. So great guy. I expect, even more positive things to come from the Dons in the, the next year.
Yep. So let's talk about
their sister school.
Yeah, their sister. I guess in this case it'd be brother, considering we're talking about men's basketball. But either way, Purdue.
Yeah, so they actually started the season in KenPom number 1. So they were the number 1 KenPom team, not the AP number 1 team, which I think was Kansas to start the year.
Think so.
Which is silly. I mean, by complete bias, right? Like name bias, right?
100%.
Purdue started the season at 1 in KenPom and ended the season at 3rd. So, great. Like that's a great thing. That you had no fall off. They were in the top 2 at the 2 spot for so long. I'm not sure exactly when they dropped to number 3, probably after the national championship game.
Yeah, I think so.
But they were projected to go 15-5 in the Big Ten and 22-7 overall. And, this was a big season for us talking and Purdue fans everywhere, because this was probably this was absolutely the most pressure Purdue has had coming into the season, because as everyone knows, they lost in the first round to a 16 seed the year before. They lost to Fairleigh Dickinson in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And so it was like, okay, you bring back everyone who's important to this team. You bring back Zach Edey, the reigning National Player of the Year. You bring back Braden Smith, your phenomenal freshman point guard. He's a year older. You bring back Fletcher Lawyer, who, could shoot the ball for most of the season. Trey Kaufman-Renn, you're like, can he make a jump? Can he be that guy to kind of back up Edey? Can he play alongside him and, complement him? And then we were like, one person that I was kind of high on was Miles Colvin. That one didn't pan out the way that I thought it was going to, but not because he wasn't capable. It's because the person that you were high on was exactly what this Purdue team needed, and that's Lance Jones, who transferred from Southern Illinois. And, you were very high on him. And I think because he's, small, 6 foot, but an athletic guard who has good handles, can, he's pretty quick, so he can do things that Purdue struggled with, breaking a press, getting downhill, shooting the 3 ball when he needs to. And like, Purdue's season pans out completely differently if they don't have him this year. Like, he was like the biggest addition to this team, even better than people making a jump like they did.
And players even said it to him, during their, and I'll talk about their NCAA run, but they said, like, Lance, you're the reason we're here. You are the difference. You are what you were the missing piece. And that, I mean, that panned out to their, in actuality, they went 34-5 overall. So I will say they were projected to go 22-7. They went 34-5. Preseason projections do not take into consideration postseason games. Right. So keep that in mind. But they went 17-3 in the Big Ten. So better than people thought. They won Maui, beating Gonzaga, Tennessee, and Marquette on the way.
And we absolutely thought that they could do that.
Yeah. We thought it was absolutely realistic. They beat Bama, they beat Arizona, all teams that were, Bama was a Final Four team, Arizona was a NCAA championship, pick. A lot of people had them winning the NCAA championship. In-state, they played 2 in-state games, both against Indiana, blew them out of the water both times. So they beat their biggest rival there twice. So a lot of wins, like we talked about. Important players. We could talk all day about how important everyone on their team was. I'm just going to call out, 4. And Lance Jones, like I said, was one. Didn't write any of his numbers down, but he was the missing piece. He's the reason they went on the run that they did.
You could just tell by watching the team, like, his defensive energy, his ability on the, on both sides of the court, just elevated this team, especially in like that Elite 8 game against Tennessee. Like, they don't win that game without him for sure.
Yeah. But Zach Edey, he was consensus player of the year and every single player of the year organization, the Naismith, the Wooden, all that. He won it, as well as Big Ten player of the year. He was Big Ten first team and Big Ten defensive team, averaged 25 and 12. He did have 2 blocks per game. He was a 50% 3-point shooter.
People don't talk about it enough.
No, I think it's a very underrated stat that people just kind of forget about. Braden Smith, Big Ten first team, their second leading scorer at 12 points per game, 7.5 assists per game, just under 2 steals per game, 43% 3-point shooter. Mason Gillis, Big Ten 6th man of the year. Matt Painter, co-coach of the year in the Big Ten next to Fred Hoiberg. Finished the season first in the Big Ten. The Big Ten tournament did not go out kind of, I think, like they hoped. They won over Michigan State and then lost in overtime by 1 to Wisconsin in the semifinal. Correct?
Yeah, the semifinal. But they won the Big Ten regular season by 3 games, which is what they are projected to do. They just won more games than they were projected to. They just lost fewer as well.
Yep. And then they were an NCAA 1 seed. They on their way to the national championship. They beat Grambling State, Utah State, Gonzaga, Tennessee. Gonzaga and Tennessee, two teams that they already beat earlier in the season, and then they lost, or excuse me, they won and ended NC State's Cinderella run, if you will. And then in the championship, they lost unfortunately by 15 to Connecticut. Connecticut is just a team that everyone wanted to see Purdue play all season. It was like, okay, who is the best team in the country? Is it Connecticut? Is it Purdue? We got that on the biggest stage. And unfortunately, Connecticut, just they wanted to go back to back. And
Yeah, you run into, I mean, the
just a
best UConn team
buzzsaw.
ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like worst time to run into this UConn team was this year. But our question at the beginning of the season was, is this season national title or bust? And we kind of said yes, but we kind of thought if you get to the national championship game, or even the final four, that is absolutely a successful season, because I think anyone who's like national title or bust, like getting to the final four, getting to the national championship game, like anything can happen at that point.
Yeah.
Anything can happen, so they made it to that point. So absolutely a successful season. They get to the final four for the first time since 1980. Matt Painter gets over that hump, kind of silences the haters who said that, he can't win in the NCAA tournament. You can't win in the NCAA tournament playing a big like this. And he proved everyone wrong and had a very successful season. I mean, just no question, like very, very successful season.
Yep. Absolutely.
But let's talk about our next team. So we're going to head down south. We've got two teams left. We're going to talk about Southern Indiana, the Screaming Eagles, and then we'll talk about Valparaiso. So Southern Indiana started the season at 336th in KenPom, and they went up by the end of the year to 328th. They're projected to go 12-19 and 7-12 in the OVC. This is Coach Gerard's second season as a D1 coach, but I think his fourth season total for Southern Indiana. So he saw them make the transition to Division 1, which is always a hard thing to do. I mean, Southern Indiana was a good, historically pretty good Division 2 team, and people people you may know have coached there. Bruce Pearl, is one of them. So very good D1, D2 team heading to D1. They were not able to make the NCAA tournament, even if they won the Ohio Valley Conference tournament, because they have the probationary period that the NCAA keeps enforcing for some reason. So kind of people we thought that would be important. We thought Jeremiah Hernandez was going to be important because they didn't return a single person who scored more than 5 points per game. So their top 8, like people with the top 8 highest usage on the team last year, this the 22-23 season, all graduated or transferred out. And that's people like Isaiah Swope, transferred out, balled out all year for Indiana State. So you lose a guy like him and you're like, where is our scoring going to come from? And one guy we kind of pegged as, doing that was Jeremiah Hernandez. He averaged 4.9, played 15.9 minutes the year before, and we thought that he could kind of take those transfers and kind of bring them along. And he absolutely did that. So he was like the one we were high on. The other ones, I mean, we thought Jaren Hassan transferred from UConn. We thought he might be able to be a big deal, but that didn't exactly pan out. But they were projected to go finish ninth in the Ohio Valley Conference out of 11. So kind of successful season for us. I don't even remember what we exactly said would be successful. Just about the same as they did the year before.
I think this is a team, just our lack of knowledge in general over the Screaming Eagles. We just wanted them to I don't know what we wanted to do, but we wanted to see improvement based on what they lost. We wanted to
Yeah.
see guys step up.
Not
We
necessarily a better record, right? So they
yeah,
went 16
yeah,
and 17 the year previous, which they're bringing in, a lot of guys who were good, like great D2 players who, we'll see, they will go through the transition with you because they're getting the opportunity to play D1 and then all of a sudden they pop and they realize they can play at a bigger school.
yeah,
But, we didn't expect them to be better than 16 and 17. We just wanted to kind of see them compete and like we really did not know what to expect. We did not really know anything about these players, like the people who actually made a difference. Were not on our radar really at all other than Hernandez.
yeah. So, I mean, they finished the season at 328 in Ken Palm. They went 8-24 and 5-13 in the Ohio Valley. Uh, some notable games. They lost to Duke by 18, but they were beating Duke at half. Like they were up on Duke at halftime. So that the team, they had talent. They just didn't finish a lot of games. I think they lost a lot of games by single digits. Um,
So
and
many.
like it was, I've never seen it. I've never seen it. So, 8-24, they realistically could have been, 12-19, like the season was projected. They could have been 13
Mhm.
and 18. But they did lose both their in-state matchups. They lost to Purdue Fort Wayne, and then lost to Indiana State. Uh, Important players, like we talked about. Jeremiah Hernandez had 4.9, averaged 4.9 last year. This year, averaged 17.2. Had 1.5 steals per game. He shot 31.7% from three. He was all Ohio Valley first team. Like he balled out. And he stepped up like kind of we thought and hoped. AJ Smith, another guy that was not on our radar, 13.7 points per game and 8.8 rebounds per game, so almost averaging a double-double there. Jack Campion, he had 6.7 points per game and 3.8 assists per game. He was a leading assist man. Jack Milkey had 8.5 points per game. He was a 90% free throw shooter and a 40% three-point shooter. So,
Mhm.
Impressive stats there. They did finish the season 8th in the Ohio Valley out of 11, which meant that they got to play in the Ohio Valley tournament because,
Only the
the
top 8
top,
make
yeah,
it,
the top 8 make it, just like
just like the
the
MAC.
MAC. They did lose in the first round to Tennessee State, 78-64, though. So they made the tournament after, you know, you know, naysayers said that they wouldn't. Like
Yeah.
we had some people that were, tweeting us all season saying that they weren't going to make it. The projections said that they weren't going to make it. They did. I mean, that's
Right.
successful. They moved up 40 spots, or sorry, they moved up like 14 spots in Ken Palm. No,
Mhm.
is that math right? 14? I don't know. I don't do math. Um, eight spots. They
I'm
moved
gonna
up
let
eight
you work it
spots.
out.
Moved up eight
One
spots.
time math one-time math major, folks.
Made it one, not even a semester.
One-time
Not
math
even a
major
semester.
struggling to subtract.
Well, I was looking at it because of the way the numbers, like I was
Right.
looking at
Yeah.
them the other way. So I was like doing the negatives and it just, anyways.
You threw some other symbols in there, man. It's great.
Yeah. It wasn't basic. I didn't want to use my fingers. I didn't want to embarrass myself too much. Um, but yeah, we didn't know what we expected. I'd say that they exceeded our expectations of not having it. Like
Mhm.
they did all right.
I was very happy with this team. They obviously didn't win as much as they could have, but they were really in a lot of games and they had some really heartbreaking losses, that could have absolutely been wins, like, losing like to Tennessee State, they lost by 5. They lost by 2 to Little Rock. They had so many close losses that absolutely, flip 3 of those. We're looking at them. They avoid the 8 seed in the tournament and maybe they win a game there. But
I had a lot of
the-
fun watching this team.
yeah, me too. And
Like
they seemed like they were getting, decent crowds down there, which I love too. So
Mhm.
people taking a liking to the Screaming Eagles, who, my favorite mascot name in the state by far.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's talk about our last school.
Yep. Last but certainly not least, that's Valparaiso. So they moved up in Ken Palm by the end of the year. They started at 324th and they ended at 300th. And they were projected to go 9-22 in the during the season and finish 4-16 in the Missouri Valley. And the Missouri Valley was a really, really tough conference. And we really thought that, you know, kind of like the top was heavy, middle was kind of clogged. Could they break into that middle? But they lost a ton. I mean, they lost a ton of pieces. They lost 11 players and they returned 4 and none of them were starters. So they had 9 scholarship players coming in, like 9 new
Yep.
scholarship players coming in. And so we were like, okay, just don't finish last in the Missouri Valley, and you're probably happy. But it's Roger Powell's first year at Valpo. He was at Gonzaga the year before as an assistant coach, and we didn't expect a lot from him because like Valpo in the Missouri, like the Missouri Valley being a tough conference, Valpo coming in is going to be up against it because of kind of the powerhouses that you've seen before in like Belmont and
Drake.
Murray State and Drake. And so you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, especially with so many young pieces. Like, Cooper Schwieger ended up being a guy that we had like on our radar, but we didn't think he was going to be, Missouri Valley Freshman of the Year. So we like,
Yeah.
we didn't know really what to expect from those guys because we hadn't seen a lot of them play because a lot of them were young. But Isaiah Stafford was a guy who transferred from Southern Indiana, and we were like, okay, he might be able to do something. And then Ola Ajiboye from Central Michigan, we thought could be an impact player. And then sophomore guard Jackson Edwards, who came over from Murray State, we thought might be able to kind of make a difference for this team. But, you know, Powell constructed his team, in my opinion, not to win this year. He went like efforts to construct his team to be good long term. And, with the portal era, we'll see how that works out. But I really like that he did that because I think that he's building some relationships that will continue to blossom and show that, like, if you're Cooper Schwieger, he's going to kind of give you the green light and give you the freedom to go play how you want to play. So, talk about how the season went, Jaren. How did it actually go?
Yeah. Yeah. So like we talked about, they jumped 4 spots, 24 spots, excuse me. And can pump that math is a lot easier.
Yeah,
Um,
the zeros help. The
the, z-
zeros, man.
the zeros help. They did finish the season 7-25 and 3-17 in the conference, so a little bit lower than they were projected. But I mean, the team had heart. They have more heart than a lot of teams that we watch and talk about. They did go 0-4 in in-state matchups. They lost to IUPUI very early on in the season. I think if they play at the end of the season, they would have beat IUPUI. They lost to Evansville twice. Sorry, so they went 0-5. Lost to Evansville twice, and then lost to Indiana State twice. Important players, right? We talked about it. Isaiah Stafford is their leading scorer at 16.9 points per game, 1.6 steals per game. Cooper Schwieger, and Missouri Valley Conference all freshman team, Missouri Valley Conference Freshman of the Year. He was, he had second leading scorer at 13.2. He had 5.4 rebounds per game. He was a 36.3% 3-point shooter. So he was able to kind of step out a little bit and hit those threes. Darius Diavero, 7.9 points per game, 3.2 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists per game. He was their leading assist man. He was also a 36% 3-point shooter. So
Yeah, he was very important to this team.
very, very important from a lead guard facilitator perspective. They did end up last in the Missouri Valley. They lost in the first round of Arch Madness to Belmont, a really good Belmont team, like we talked about. I mean, Aiden, you said it. We'll talk about it in 2 weeks, a lot more in depth. But they're doing a lot this offseason to continue to build on, build this team up and be successful. They, spoiler, they brought in Cooper's twin brother.
Yeah, they're like, man, that boy nice. What if we had two of them?
Exactly. So,
Which, let me ask you a question. I'll bring this up in 2 weeks, but is it problematic if they're referred to as the Twin Towers since they're twin big?
I've thought about it several times. And I almost tweeted it once, and I was like, I can't do this.
We gotta put some feelers out there to some people who won't light us up.
Aiden, let us know what you think. Is that an acceptable thing for us to say?
Put some feelers out there in the Valpo area and see, kind of be like, man, Valpo's got the Twin Towers next year. Well, what do you think about that? And report back so that we can know.
Yeah,
all right.
I don't want people coming at our heads for calling the Schwieger twins the Twin Towers. But anyways, they did kind of underperform as a record standpoint. They exceeded our expectations from a metrics standpoint, right? In KenPom. So they're playing in a tough league. We talked about it. We didn't think Powell was trying to build a team to win now. We thought he wanted he wanted to build a culture. He wants to build a program, rebuild a program. We talked about it with Paul Oren. There's a lot of history behind this program. And I think Roger Powell is feeding into that and wants to bring that back for the Beacons.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot to be positive about, especially given the stuff that they're doing in the off season. But we'll kind of talk about how that's gonna work out for them in 2 weeks. So we kind of that's it for our 11 teams. If you're here, on YouTube now, later, afterwards, if there's something that we didn't talk about, like you wanted us to talk more specifically about players, or we'll talk about transfer stuff later. But if you want us to talk more about players, more, hit on different things, let us know. We'll take those into consideration for next time, because obviously we want to talk about the things that you want to hear about.
Yep.
So whatever it is, if you don't care what we thought preseason, I mean, it will be different next year, because we will know a little bit more about these teams, because we will know exactly who they're bringing in and know more about them. But this is a fun exercise for us, I think.
Yeah,
I liked revisiting and seeing names on our radar at the beginning of the season. I was like, did he play a game? Did he even set a foot on the court this year?
Yeah, and I mean, there's guys that a lot of these names we had never heard before in our lives, and it's like, okay, never heard of the guy. What's he gonna do? And then he goes out and pops off, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm now familiar with your game.
Schwieger was like a guy we mentioned as, and they got this guy named Cooper Schwieger. He's a freshman, big, and then he's Missouri Valley Conference, freshman of the year.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's fun. It was fun. I liked it.
So next week, we're peek behind the curtain. We're recording tomorrow. It's not going to be a live show. Right? I mean, I don't know.
We're
not going to be live. We will be recording. So we will be releasing not next Sunday. We won't be going live next Sunday. We will be releasing Monday morning.
So it'll be just like all of our during the season content, right? It'll go back to that. We started the lives for the NCAA tournament, kind of kept going because we liked it. I think we like this format.
I think we'll go live when we can every Sunday, but if we have a guest or something, it's hard to ask someone to show up at 9 p.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're recording tomorrow, and this is for you Purdue fans. We're having on Isaac Romig he's a Purdue student. So if you're on, a part of Purdue Twitter, and you've seen the candles that he was putting out during the NCAA tournament, especially, kind of really caught fire there, pun intended. We're having him on to just kind of talk about, where'd that idea come from? What was it like being a Purdue student during this historic Final Four run? Because we want to kind of pick his brain to know, what it was like in West Lafayette when this was happening. Like, he was there to welcome the team back, from the Elite Eight, but when they made it to the Final Four. So we're going to get into all that stuff with him tomorrow. We will release that on, I think the date is the 6th of May. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Monday, May 6th, that episode will be coming out. And then we will be going live the following Sunday with our transfer portal episode. So we're going to be compiling who's coming in, who's going out, what should you expect from these people, and so on and so forth. Only other thing I really wanted to talk about is Pacers win. Pacers win.
They are up 3-1 on a very depleted Bucks team, but I don't care if they're depleted or not.
Hey man, win's a win.
Pacers broke their postseason curse so far. So
it's still going. I would like to be talking about the Pacers, mention the Pacers every show until they win their first championship. But we'll see. They won. They're up 3-1. Hopefully they can close out, because next game's in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah, they go back to Milwaukee.
They just did 2 in Indianapolis. So
yep.
Apologies if you're watching that game. Maybe you threw us up on the second screen, or maybe it's already Monday or Tuesday. It didn't matter anyway.
Yeah. Oh well. No spoilers. The game's over for us, so
it's over for you too.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, shoot, you might already know if they already won the whole first round.
Yep, that's true. That's true. But the clock is showing quadruple zeros, so it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in with the State of Basketball podcast. We will see you next week. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.